While you're doing that, while you're getting connected, we'll just do our introduction real quick. And want you to know, first of all, that I want it to be very much of a question-answer based. I'm going to show you a few things. Jill's going to show you a few things. But if you are not getting what you thought you wanted, there's nothing worse than that. Make sure that you interact, ask questions, and be as interactive as possible. So everybody gotten the link there? I'm Deb Losgard. I'm the technology integrationist at Online. I was at Starmont for about 15 years, taught 712 social studies. I was trained by the Buck Institute a couple summers ago. I had convinced my superintendent to send me to Napa, California for a full week. So it was pretty cool. I got to learn side by side with the national faculty. If you are on Twitter, you can connect with me at Deb Losgard.
And I'm Jill Kelly. I'm the instructional technology coach at the Owen Middle School. I was the talent and gifted coordinator for the Owen School District for 9 years prior to that, and I taught in Georgia before that. And I'm on Twitter at Teacher J Kelly.
Okay. You may need to see the URL address again, or gotta go back. This is also linked up on the resource page too, so if you have that, you can find it there. Okay, so PBL, project-based learning. What I want you to do is go through the actual steps of a project-based unit with you. So teach you about the steps as you experience the steps. So the first thing, if you are a Madeline Hunter lesson planner, it would be the anticipatory set. And in this world, it's the entry event. So as you take a look at this, and one of the big pushbacks I always get from project-based, different places that I've taught, the ADAs and things, but this isn't teaching them for the real world. These soft skills, these 4 C's, series-based grading, the retests and all this, doesn't teach them for the real world. As I found this the other day on Twitter, as you go through this, these are the things that happen in the real world. These are the things that we don't do in school a lot. So if we're wanting to prepare them for the real world, and if this is the real world, are we doing it? Another thing real quick as an entry event is try to pique your interest. If you were to take a look at this list of attributes, things that you want our students to graduate with, what would you add? What would you take away? When I was on the school board, we had the Valley School Board or the North Fayette School Board, and we wanted to create a new mission statement. We have all these lovely things out there. We want to have creative thinkers and collaborators, and they want to interview well and all of these things, but nobody said anything about mastery of World War II content. Social studies teacher. I'm like, wait a second, you know what? Civics. Nobody said anything about trigonometry, mastering this. The only thing from this list for content-wise is math and maybe a little reading. So if we have math students and we have readers, we're good to go. Is that what we want? Or do we want this list? So, still in our entry event, still piquing your interest hopefully, getting you to think, beginning to wonder. If we take a look at this mind, another one that I stole from the internet, mentoringminds.com, from Twitter I should say. If we take a look at that, you can't really see it very clear up here, but if you have the link, you can see it. Where in your classroom, in a traditional teacher-centered classroom, where are you making these connections? Are you? Okay. Before you can get to this, you have to think about these 3 things. Your classroom culture. Jill, do you want to mention this?
Yeah, in your culture, it's are you questioning kids? Are they questioning the content? What does your room look like? Is it rows? Do you move your furniture depending on your event? Do you have group settings, pair settings, big circle settings? That makes a difference, the placement of the furniture.
take a look at this sheet here, the do's and don'ts of your culture. You can have the best project-based unit and you have them totally engaged with the entry event. They've created a great amount of questions. They're sustained inquiry, but if it's a poor space for them to work at, they're not going to function well. What I mean by that is if it is a space that it's not okay to fail, they're going to, it's not going to be a successful experience for them. Are you in control of your classroom or are your students in control of your classroom? You don't want to answer it? Where is your mindset? This keynote this morning, Eric, and yesterday was just like, oh my gosh, this is so perfect. I'm so jacked up about this because it's exactly what's in my mindset. When I was in my classroom, it was a creative space. Jill, we were always talking about, we feedback and forth. It's a creative space where we want the kids to actually do something with their learning, not just regurgitate facts about World War II.
And allowing the students to be like the cat today and take risks and fail and get up and do it again.
Librarian, anybody go to him? Yeah, he is awesome, and he has everything on here that you could possibly want. But the one thing that I love, and I'm sure everybody's heard of it by now, is the first attempt at learning, and that was actually on my whiteboard when I was in the classroom. I want them to realize that failure is an option because they have to learn how to cope from it. Okay. Let's get into the guts here. Okay, so we're still in the entry event. I'm still just kind of, in my classroom it'd be more of a discussion-based kind of a thing, but you guys don't want to play along, so fine. But the deal here is, okay, so you cannot be creative about nothing. So you want these soft skills. We want them to be, remember that list, creative, motivated, all this stuff. You can't have a sense of wonder about nothing. You can't have motivation without something to be motivated about. Well, what is that nothing? What is that something? That's where your content comes in. One of the other big pushback that I get from teachers is, well, I need to cover these standards. I need to make sure that they do know the basic facts of World War II, or they need to know the basics of trigonometry and whatnot. I don't have time to do all that stuff. But if you create a well-rounded project-based unit, you get your content and you get your soft skills. So, if we kind of think about this, and this was said at, I can't take credit for it because I didn't say it, but it was an aha moment for me, and I've been in PBL for 4 years in my own classroom. But I was fortunate enough to go to Andrew Miller at Charles City and listen to him speak to Charles City staff, and he was talking about the door is the standards. The key is PBL. It's going to unlock the standards to the outside world, which is that authenticity. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. A pretty little picture. PBL is the how, I, of course, the what, the tech tools will help you get there. Okay. So that would be like an entry event. I would take like a day to put it out to the kids. You can have entry events, a lot of guest speakers. I have had short documentaries. What entry events have you had? Have you done entry events? Yeah.
YouTube videos.
Right on, yep. The main purpose of the entry event is to get them to start wondering. And here's the next piece of the 8 essential elements set forth by the Buck Institute is the challenges. The driving question. So our driving question for you guys today is, what can you do to be the change in your classroom? Last Tuesday, I was at the social studies conference doing the same spiel to my people, the social studies people. And so we just kind of got stuck on this for a while because we were really in the social studies world and the science world and the math world. I can pick on social studies because that's me. We are so fixated on they have to know the content. Chapter quizzes, chapter tests, it took me about 3 years to realize they are never going to remember this stuff. Why am I force feeding them? Why am I requiring that to pass my class, to take a test, a multiple choice they'll never remember? Any pushback on that? Or you're all like, yes, you're so right. Okay. So the big thing that we're going to take a look at is challenging you to think differently, think creatively, respond immediately. First challenge, think differently about your pedagogy. So as I'm in the explanation of the project with my students. I've given them the entry of it, I've launched the project, now I'm going to tell them the driving question, we're going to start exploring. So, okay, so you're going to think, I'm asking you to look at the way you teach and shake it up. I'm asking you to take a look at what your students are learning. Do you love the core? Yes. No. As a social studies teacher, I hated the core. It's terrible. It's understand, explain. C3 framework, however, now we're talking. That's some cool stuff. But instead of looking at your students to be content experts, how can you think and get them to think like content area experts? How can you get them to be historians or mathematicians and not just a kid who can do a really good worksheet? We're going to also ask you to think critically about how you're assessing. Didn't say grading, that's one thing that Andrew Miller kept saying. He's like, I love assessment. I didn't say grading, assessment. We don't have a lot of time to talk a lot about serious-based grading, but this goes hand in hand with this.
So if you're using formative assessment to see where your students are, where you need to move your self, you can quickly use some technology tools to do that without taking a lot of time, like forms and
we're going to give you
yeah.
So we have okay, so now you have the entry event. You have them interested, you have some YouTube videos, you have maybe a guest speaker come in, you have the principal come in. Now, there's one with the Revolutionary War, have you ever seen that one, where it's a breakdown letter to Great Britain, and they're just like, I found this piece of paper, and it's like, oh my God, and the kids are like, oh, kind of thing. So they're interested, they're piqued, they're wondering what's going on, and then they have the challenging, the driving question, the wonder, like, okay, what's she up to now? Or the music's playing as they walk into the room. And now I'm going to give them a proficiency scale. Now that this is the roadmap, it's going to be curvy as all get out, but it's going to be how they're going to get to the end. And this is how standards-based grading kind of meshes a little bit, how I've made it mesh, I should say, with project-based learning. On this side are the tasks that they're going to go through. You're going to get your content. If you're a great lecturer, you don't have to abandon it. You're going to stay there. You're going to have the kids ask need-to-know questions. Have you ever had your students take 2 days, maybe 1 day, 2 days, just to ask questions about the content, the I can statements? See a couple head nods. I've never had prior to launching into the Buck Institute. And then they're going to have a sustained inquiry. It's not just Google research, and then they're going to have a creation. So that's the PBL side. And then on this side that Jill was just getting to, that's going to be your formative assessments where you're going to get your tech tools in there. So your standards today are the Iowa standards, Iowa teaching standards, so to speak. Are you comfortable with the proficiency scales? Does that make sense? We're going to go into it a little bit more, but okay. This is the foundation knowledge level 1. You're going to tell the kids what they don't know, so that what you don't know, or maybe you're not comfortable with, or if you have a question, now is the time to clarify. Your PBL elements, your 8 essential elements. Are you comfortable with these? Okay, thank you for those 2 people that told me that you're okay. Buck Institute, BIE.org. I'm going to show you my website that has a bunch of different resources that I put together that I reference. If you take a look at this is a checklist. And this is something that, so you go online, you're like, okay, I'm going to see if there's a PBL for World War II. So you find one and you're like, oh, okay, this looks really cool. I'm going to have my kids do this. Stop, though, and do this checklist. If you take something from the internet, make sure that it's actually project-based. And this is a great way to figure it out. So I'm just read through that. Any questions on it? Key knowledge or understanding, that's going to be your content. Your standards. Your challenging problem or your question, this is the most difficult part for me to create. And oftentimes throughout the learning process, I will have it changed. I'm like, okay, the kids aren't going where I needed to go, so I need to go ahead and change it a little bit. Sustained inquiry, when they have a question and they do more research and then asks another question and just kind of keeps going and going and going. Authenticity, does it have a real purpose? Are they being historians or are they just regurgitating information to create a poster? I've gone down my hallways at Starmont where I used to be and I see these great posters and it looks like all this creativity. If you stop and take a look at it though, it's the same information. The teacher gave them a recipe. This one looks just like that, but it's a different character, and it looks just like that, different character, and there's absolutely no purpose for those whatsoever. And that's a challenge. That's something that we need to think about, especially in the social studies world and technology we'll talk about, can do that, can help us. Student voice and choice, does it mean that I just like open the floodgates and go, go save the world, here are your standards? Certainly not. I narrowed them, I funneled them. I'm going to show you how I did that. Reflection, this is huge. Jill will talk about blogging, making them own their learning process. Then to revise. In the social studies classroom, or in any classroom, I wonder, I forget, I'm not talking to all social studies people this time around, sorry. When I have the kids present, number one, it'd just be to me and the rest of the class, and it'd be about the same thing, and everybody's bored as heck, right? Sound familiar? Okay, so I'm switching what I'm going to say here. So I have the kids come up and they present, they get feedback from the classmates. You done that? I like it, I wonders. They go back and then they'll critique or they'll do some more research and they'll figure out, they'll come back up. They'll ask for it to be either a feedback day or the final day, the presentation day. Do you give the kids the opportunity to tell you when they're ready to present? Or is it Tuesday's the presentation day, present? And then the whole product. What is that presentation? That's still a practice. When they present in my classroom, that's still a practice. Okay, now they're ready to go to the Lions Club. Now they're ready to go to the administration or to the school board, was a big one. Okay, so those are the 8 essential elements in like 3 minutes. Okay, just want to show you this site really quick. Again, as the foundation knowledge, just kind of telling you the basics, so to speak. This is the website that I created years ago, and I keep adding things to it. But these are helpful readings throughout the 8 essential elements. How standards-based grading fits in the project-based world. I use Solon's all throughout my 4 years. I use Solon's 4-point rubric. I didn't change it. I didn't modify it. It's exactly what I use. And then I went to Charles City and listened to Adrian Miller and found ThemeSpark. If you haven't used that, use that. We have people nodding. That is amazing. It does it. It puts it in the actual standard format SVG for you. Okay. Oops. Okay. The PBL resources, another place for you to go ahead and take a look at. Hopefully we'll have time for you to go back and look at these. But again, a list of things that, I believe this one's from Andrew Miller. So all of this information right now is I'm telling the kids, I'm giving them enough information to go, okay, I still don't know all there is to know about those 8 essential elements, and I might have spent maybe about 5 more minutes if that's something that I was really wanting the kids to discover. But I wouldn't overkill it. The keynote yesterday, why wouldn't you overkill it? What do you want still to remain? The curiosity. You want them to still wonder, to try to figure it out. So hopefully between today, between Jill and I, that we piqued your curiosity, that you'll want to go back and learn a little bit more about the level 1 knowledge. Within that, we're talking about your 4 C's.
Yeah, within that, level 1, and the 4 C's really goes through a lot of the levels, but the technology really helps the students become authentic learners through their project. They become real historians because they can connect, they can communicate with real historians around the world. They can collaborate with their peers on documents. They can use critical thinking skills and ask questions to those historians. And they can also use amazing tools like iMovie, GarageBand, the list goes on to create and publish material that can go online for the world to see.
Awesome. And this is kind of, to continue with this, is exactly what Jill was talking about, the tech tools to help with the 4 C's. It's not obviously the tool, it's how it's being used. We've hammered that home. I think that's kind of a mute point in today's society. It's not just the tool, it's how you use it. But here again are my 4 levels. Every lesson, I have the foundation knowledge, so I do have, short quizzes, but it's not at the end of the unit. So if I have World War II quizzes or legislative branch quizzes, I do want them to master that, but that's not it. Now, why is Congress so messed up? What questions do you have about Congress? And then they go and they find out more things about Congress, and they have the creation, whatever it is. Here are some tech tools that we've used along the way. They're not crazy tech tools. They're not like things that you, well, maybe they are. They're things that I've used for years. They've been out there for a long time. You don't need to have the latest and greatest gadget to do these formative assessments.
There are a lot of tech tools embedded in this project or this PowerPoint. When you look at or this presentation, pick 1 or 2 that work for you. You don't have to try them all, but pick the ones that are easiest for you, because when you do formative assessments, you want to know quick at a glance what they're getting, what they don't need, what you need to give them tomorrow.
Here's the, if you are on this page here, if you want a few minutes to take a look at this, everything in yellow is a link to either an article or some Jill's PowerPoints up here as well, the formative assessment ideas, any ones that you want to point out with that?
Yeah, the forms of Fluger, have you ever used that? It's really easy. It takes just a few minutes to give them a couple questions and you can get the response back immediately. Exit ticket, Padlet, which you use at the beginning of this. It just gives you a feel of what your students know and if they get the concepts. And like we've heard earlier today, and when you looked at that image of the gas, the car, common core, the gas is the tech tools. And you just need to use the right tools. If you use the wrong gas, it's not going to go very well. You need to figure out the right tools that will fit with your classroom and make sure that they're invisible, that they're not the main thing. The main thing is the project and the content.
Awesome. So in the level 1 knowledge, we're giving you a little bit about the essential elements. We're giving you a little bit about the formative assessments, tool ideas. So the next piece, the next thing that I would want my kids to do, kind of take a look at this and just what Jill just talked about, start small, take one bit. The next step then, we'll spend about 10 minutes or so on this, is asking the questions. So you have enough, you know enough to be kind of dangerous, you have those 8 essential elements, you have some tech tools at your disposal you can go back and take a look at. Now as a teacher, as the facilitator really, you want the kids to start asking questions. That's the need to know, and that proficiency scale, that's the next thing up. I had a foreign exchange student from Italy, and she's like, Mrs. Lossford, I have mastered all of it. I've taken every quiz, I've got A's. Why am I still not done with this? And I said, oh honey, we're only at level 1, 3 more levels to go. And that was a crazy mind shift for her, because she was just used to taking in the information and regurgitating, taking it in and regurgitating. There was no process whatsoever. And in a traditional classroom, that's where it sits. We don't let the kids, we're like, why don't they take notes? Why don't they read? Well, because they know tomorrow you're going to go ahead and just tell them everything they need to know. So why would they? Right? Okay, so the group creation piece, there's a link there. That's how I created my groups. There's the one big thing, I never gave homework, and so it was a big pushback of, well, how do you teach the responsibility? Well, it's through the group creation forms. Each individual is responsible to the group. They report out to the coordinator. It's quite a process that in and of itself takes about 2 days to explain in my online courses and stuff. But you take a look at that and take from it what you will. If you're worried about getting a group. Speaking of that, real quick, the group creation, this is where SBG and PBL kind of go like this. They kind of butt heads. Project-based says it needs to be very specific. You need to have a kinesthetic learner and a auditory learner and all this kind of stuff. In an SBG world, it's like, oh, you're ready to go? See you later. Go fly. And so that's what I do. And so, yep, I have this high flyers all working together. Sometimes I had one kiddo that if it interested him, if it was like a war theme kind of thing, unit or whatever, he'd like get proficient faster. But they have to prove proficiency in level 1 to get to level 2. So the first 4 kids that are proficient in whatever it is I'm assessing get to go on to group creation. So they need to know questions. Now they're going to start planning their research. So if you are following along, I use a format which is similar, just like this. I ask the kids, what do you have questions about regarding what do you have questions about the driving question? What questions do you have about the I can statement? Because they've already seen the proficiency scale, they already know the roadmap, they had that when I launched the project after the driving question. What questions do you have about foundation knowledge? I had one group that was really weirded out because they found out that Hitler did experiments in World War II. And he was, just this crazy man, and Stalin's a crazy man too, but we were allies with him. But I don't get that, kind of a question mark. And so that was kind of, some of their questions were all about that. How do we pick our allies? Like, that's a solid question, I don't know, kind of thing. That's another thing about your culture. Is your classroom set up so that you are the answer? Or do you give your students a question when they ask you a question? My biggest phrase was, I don't know, write it down on their need to know list. So if you have a question, you could write it down here. I realize that. I'm just scrolling down. That's just small. Anyway, I'd have them put their name here, their driving question. So I don't understand what analyze means. I don't understand how I can be the change or whatever it is. The questions about the I can statements. So they're starting to break down their own learning. What do they really need to know? I'm told the principal Atrocity and Naomi that I was going to use their stuff today. This is a list of need-to-know questions that they put together. Before Andrew Miller came in to talk about the bucket, to talk about PBL, they literally had it set to go. They had done their need-to-know, they did the background, and he had links in there. He helped them out, he answered them. So that link is there, that's a resource. So, rather than just putting it on the sheet, do you have any questions? If you were to go back into the foundation knowledge, about 8 essential elements, or how we use tech tools at each level, do you have any need to knows that we can help right now with?
How many of you have used today's meet, back channel? That's great way for students, especially the quiet ones, to ask those questions and put them out there. And to handle it as well.
How comfortable are you with creating a unit that the students are original producers? Is that a comfortable idea? One of my biggest pet peeves is on biographies. If you're teaching a child how to write a research paper and you're going to have them do a biography on Ben Franklin, how many biographies on Ben Franklin exist? Gazillions? So why are they doing that again? Why are they always being the ones that are just consuming in our classroom? Why are they not the ones that are producing? That's the biggest thing in PBL that I own. I used to be that teacher. 5 years ago, I used to be that traditional, I'm the content expert. Don't dare ask questions that I don't know the answers to. It was scary. But now I'm like, I have no idea. It's like stump lost guard day. I'm like, I don't know, write it down. It's great. The foundation knowledge, I don't relinquish all control of the classroom. They still get that mini lecture. I'm in different groups now. I'm working with groups of 4 instead of 30 individually. Quick need to know questions. Jill and I talked about all the different things that we could use, and we're like, at the end of the day, Google Docs is just the best way to go. Sustained inquiry. How do you assess the skills and the content in your standards? Have you broken your standards down? Do you know what it is that you are assessing? And then for the creation piece, do you know what it means to be authentic? Do your students know? We just had a conversation at lunch about Iowa Big and what Waukees doing. And like I said, Charles City is talking about, trying to get the kids out to the community. Do you? Yes, sir.
I have a question about, I feel like I'm hearing different definitions of authentic. So can you define, what does it mean for a project to be authentic for a student?
That's a great question. And, okay, so if in my world, in the social studies world, if it is, if my end product, so I'm doing a project all throughout, here's not authentic. Not authentic is, I tell you everything there is to need to know, and then you create a poster that sits on the wall, right? It has no purpose outside my classroom. Authentic piece, we had one of the, it was history class, and it was, what does it take to get a social theme, get a social movement started? And